Hey, it's John Santucci from the USA Today Florida Network. That, of course, is the great Nick Wilson. We are in the middle of spring football, my friends. Some schools have definitely been kicking it around for a while. Some schools getting ready to go. So let's just kind of take inventory, kind of where colleges are at. So, Nick, let's start with question number one. Which team has done the best job so far in Florida this cycle? So we're in the 2027 class for those of you who always get confused by the year. So what school is in best position right now?
I have to go with Miami, and I think it's a pretty clear answer, at least from my perspective. Look, to me, Nick Lanier, whoever has his commitment, is doing the best in Florida. Like he's just good enough of a player that answers the question. But I mean, if you look at this class and who they have so far, you and I are very high on Sean Tatum, who they just landed. You and I are very high on DeMarcus DeRoche, who we just landed. Jalen Jones, Sherrod at MacArthur. I mean, the list goes on and on. Josh Johnson. These are all top 100 players that their film just pops. And, talent evaluation has never really been a problem at Miami. And we're seeing them kind of close on guys that they've identified for a long time now. So I think, I think the answer is Miami just solely on the base of like how good their class already is and what they stand to gain, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, I really dislike agreeing with you just on principle, but I agree with you right now. I feel like Miami's done a really good job early on, and there's a lot of guys that are very heavily leaning towards Miami that you and I know about right now in this 2027 class that could push this to super special category, but you mentioned the commits they have right now. Nick Lanier and Sean Tatum are two of our of our popcorn players, most exciting guys in the state to watch. Sean Tatum is going to be a phenomenal, I think, inside lineman at the University of Miami. Lanier at receiver, quite frankly, Nick Lanier could play DB and be an All-Pro. In my opinion, I think he can play anywhere on the field. And then you mentioned DeRoche too, who's also that's three of our top 20 guys right there. So love what Miami's doing. All right, let's flip to this question. I think you kind of gave us a little bit of a hint on your answer. Which team, and it doesn't have to be a Florida team, is in the best position heading into the summer?
I didn't realize we were qualifying this with out-of-state schools too before, but I still probably would say Miami, honestly. You mentioned where they stand with our top 20 guys. I mean, just going through it, they have a real chance to sign half of the top 20 in Florida come signing day in December. I mean, we like where they stand with the number one overall player in the state, Mark Matthews. They're doing a great job on Caden Henderson. I mean, I have the list pulled up, and we could talk about it for 30 minutes on all of these guys that they can land. But Miami, and specifically the staff and the way that they've recruited these guys for a long time now. This staff has been here long enough now to have had these offers in and this coaching staff in for a while. And we're seeing it matriculate. When we talk to the top players in the state, it's Miami, it's Miami, it's Miami. And then maybe another out of school with deep pockets is fighting for it. But seriously, when we come to December and 10 of the top 20 players are signed with Miami, we saw it coming for a long time now, almost from last year. So I think that they have the most to gain going into the summer.
All right, I'm actually going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you. I'm going to stay in state, but I'm going to say Florida. You and I have heard consistently since January how much this class is enjoying John Summerall's energy, the staff's energy, the way they get after it, and it's starting to show up in recruiting too. They've already got commitments from Davin Davidson, the number one quarterback in the state. Mari Nugent from American Heritage, who's our number 3 cornerback, but number 1 if you don't include IMG kids. I know some people have a very awkward response to that, although I don't know if they realize IMG is in the state of Florida. So just saying. And then they've got the number 1 athlete in Tremont Collins out of Cottondale. That's a really good foundational spot to be in after a couple months. They have if not the best, one of the best offensive tackles from Pennsylvania committed in this class. I feel like they've got a lot of momentum. They've got a lot of really good players scheduling OVs, including, Julius Jones and Zayden Gamble from St. Thomas Aquinas. So for me, I think Florida's in a really good spot. I love the spot Miami's in too, for them, but I really do like the job that Summerall and his staff are doing. Okay, let's transition to a less fun question. Last thing before I let you go. Which fan base in Florida should be most concerned right now? And I think we've eliminated Miami and Florida from the options. So where are you right now? Who should be most concerned if you're a fan of one of the remaining teams?
Honorable mention to Florida Atlantic for everything that we know about them before, but it's Florida State. You and I were talking about this before the call, and then we had to stop because we were doing the show on the phone. But this is a program, like, I don't need to recite what the expectations are in Tallahassee. This has been a winning program for decades.
Maybe somebody should.
Yeah, no, it might be. They might need to hear it seriously, and where it seems now that this fan base would be okay with just kind of getting out of this season alive, right? And that's kind of how this felt last year, and and we saw how the wheels kind of fell off on the recruiting trail at some points. And look, bringing this back to recruiting, when you and I talk to recruits, we hear Syracuse and Louisville more than we hear Florida State now with these top players. One of the best, not just coaches but recruiters in the country, and Pat Surtain is no longer there. How that affects the guys that they already have, let alone they were trying to get, we'll see. But there's just, I mean, it feels like every time we talk about Florida State, it's the question marks, the question marks, the question marks. And now the recruits are noticing, and they just aren't kind of giving them the same time of day that Florida State historically has gotten in the state. I grew up in the state, and I remember how big of a deal it was when somebody got an offer from Florida State in any sport, and now, at least in football, that's not really matriculating the way that we've seen in years past. And their fans are rightly concerned. I think that they're fired up to the level that they need to be about this.
So just to play devil's advocate a little, because I don't disagree with you. And obviously, you and I were even debating, is Mike Norvell right now in the hottest hot seat in the nation? I think you could definitely make that argument. The guys they've got in Florida, and they've got 3 guys on the top 100 right now, are guys that you and I really like.
Yeah.
Big fan of Mekhi Williams, one of, if not, and I know where he is on our list. I almost don't want to say because I feel like it's too low still, even though it just came out a couple weeks ago. He's an outstanding safety. The edge rusher from Indian Rocks Christian, phenomenal. I love he's a prototype, right? So they've got some good commits. I don't want to just completely knock them, which is why I'm going to go to UCF, because they have 1 commit right now in the class. They had 1 top 100 commit, which was Logan Flaherty, the quarterback from Port Charlotte. He's decommitted. That was something that you and I had been hearing for a while. This is not a program that did a good job recruiting the state a year ago. You and I talked to a lot of people that do this for other outlets, and the conversation was they're recruiting at a G5 level and they're a P4 school, right? So, the only top 100 guy they signed a year ago is Tyron Horns out of Booker, a guy you and I really both liked. But the drop off in high school recruiting is so stark from Gus Malzahn and the whole state of Orlando concept to, I don't know what their strategy is in the state of Florida right now with Scott Frost. I don't know if their whole thing is we're just going to look at the portal. We don't have the resources. I don't know. I've been told that they're spending to that, what is it, $20.5 million. I'm going to call it a soft cap because I don't think Texas Tech knows some of those numbers.
That's the baseline. Yeah,
but
that's the baseline.
I've been told they're spending to it. I just don't know where those resources are when it comes to recruiting, because I don't hear about UCF. I don't hear guys talking about UCF. And if you rewind 3 years, I would say just about 80% of the kids from number 15 to number 60 had UCF in their top 10, top 15. And obviously they landed some of those guys. They got some dudes. They didn't all hit, which, by the way, is what happens in recruiting. But I'm not even hearing UCF in the conversation. So as it stands with high school recruiting, if I'm a UCF fan, I'm just wondering, what is your agenda? What is your strategy? And are you executing any of that? Because it's just not something that you and I can see. And you and I pay pretty close attention, I feel like, to recruiting. So, all right, my friend, that's it for us. Good to talk to you again. And I'm sure we'll chat soon.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.